This is a review from 3.4. We did do these questions, I believe, so it's a matter of just answering them. Looking at the first one, raising our hands, can someone tell me what are my parallel lines, if there are any? Yes.
L and M.
Did anybody get something different?
No.
Yeah. There are no parallel lines. Okay, why are there no parallel lines? Because remember, in order for something to be parallel, it has to be perpendicular in a matching line. They have to have some sort of line that's matching to be perpendicular. In perpendicular. So if I were to write this, L is perpendicular to N, and M is perpendicular to P. Is there anything that's matching here? No, so this one's none. Okay. Looking at number 4. What is parallel in number 4? Good. B is parallel to C, and I'm going to state why. B is perpendicular to A, and C is perpendicular to A, which make B parallel to C by what? Lines perpendicular to a transversal theorem. Okay, this is definitely a review. Today we are covering 3.5. You guys have seen slope in Algebra 1. You probably have not covered it as in depth as we will today. There's a lot of information in this one lesson. Your test is only on 3.4 and 3.5. So if you understood 3.4, you're going to get 50% correct. Now it's just a matter of 3.5. 3.5 has a lot of information, so you really have to study for this one. So, getting into slope. Slope is also known as M. When you're finding your M, it's normally written in your slope-intercept form, and we'll get there, but I'm going to write it on here. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Have we seen that before? We've heard about it. Maybe you forgot what it was, but we're going to kind of cover it today. So your M is your slope value. And this is the formula for slope. For this one, you see how it has 2 first and then 1? It does matter. This one you have to go in the order. 2 first, y2, then y1, then x2, then x1. You have to go in that specific order. All right, so looking at this, order matters. So a couple ways you can find slope, or you are using slope. So the first way, you're going to use slope in the formula. That is a highlighter. So slope you're using in a formula. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of rise over run. So that's another way you can find your slope. And this is normally used when you are graphing. And you could also count your rise over your run. And then slope is used, yes, we said with the formula and in the equation as M in your y equals mx plus b. So slope is also found there. Okay, so a lot of information about slope, and we're going to be using slope a lot today and the remaining of class until your test on Tuesday. All right, types of slope. I'll go back. It's okay. For this one, types of slopes. Positive, negative, 0, undefined. Positive slope and negative slopes are the easiest ones to identify. Why? Because we've all kind of seen a chart. We've all seen some sort of stock market chart with investments. If it's going up, everyone's doing great. We're all gaining money. But if it's going down, we're going to be losing money. So easy way to think about that. And you're always looking at a graph from left to right. Okay? From left to right always. Because we can never go back. So positive is moving to the right. Negative is falling to the right. When you have a 0 slope, it's going to be a horizontal line where you're just going to have y equals a number. You're not going to have an x, an m, or an x. When it's an undefined, your x equals any number. Okay, and I'll show you guys where that's going to go and how you could solve that. A lot of times, in order to tell if it's a positive, negative, zero, or undefined, is using like the slope face. So it looks super weird. That's why you'll always hopefully remember it because it looks a little scary. Here's my positives. My slope is going up. Here is my negatives, where my slope is going down. So it kind of looks like it's winking at you. Here is the nose, meaning it's always undefined. And here is my mouth, where my slopes are going to be 0. So it's like a little face. It's like a meh face. And it's winking at you. If you remember this, it will truly help you a lot. So definitely draw this. Definitely write it. Slope of parallel lines. You have to know what your slope is when you have parallel lines. Key thing here is when you have parallel lines, your slope must be the same. Okay, so please highlight that. Parallel lines, your slope is the same. All right, looking at it, for this blue line, let's just pretend. Is my slope supposed to be negative or positive for my blue line?
Negative.
Good. I'm going to have negative. We'll just call it negative 1/2.
I just make it up.
Negative 1/2. So if they're parallel lines, and they're telling me they are parallel lines because of these little arrows, what should my slope be for my red line?
Negative 1/2.
Good. Negative 1/2. Now, in order for you to find your slope, when it's written in y-intercept, it is going to look something like this. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus b. B will normally be a specific number. So when you're looking at it and it's written this way, you should know that your slope is negative 1/2. And what does that mean? When it's negative 1/2, I'm going to write it over here. That means you are going down 1 point and you are going to the right 2 points. So even if it's a fraction, you're always following that rule. If it's negative, my top is going down. If it's positive, my top is going up. And it's always going to the right, the amount of numbers that's in your denominator. All right, so looking at this, now we're dealing with perpendicular lines. Parallel lines, they have to have the same slope. For perpendicular lines, your slope is going to be opposite reciprocal. So you have to know what that means. So looking at it, if I had my blue line, we said was negative 1/2. You have to know what the opposite of negative 1/2 is, and you have to know what the word reciprocal means. What does reciprocal mean? You're flipping it, okay? So looking at opposite, if I gave you negative 5, what's the opposite of negative 5? Positive 5. So looking at this, if it's negative 1/2, I'm going to write it over here. I have my blue line is negative 1/2. So what's the opposite of negative 1/2? Positive 1/2, and then my reciprocal
2.
is 2/1. So that means my slope for my red line is going to be 2/1 or just 2. But if you're putting 2, you need to know it's going to the right 1 time. So if you leave your slope as 2/1, that's still fine. That's still correct. If you just put it as 2, that's also correct. You just need to know that it's going over once if you put 2. Okay, do we all understand perpendicular slope?
Yeah.
It's opposite reciprocal. Opposite reciprocal. And if it's parallel slopes, what do my slopes have to be? Good, they have to be the same.
So slopes are perpendicular.
So we're going to go ahead and answer these. This has to do with your little slope face. So if you want to draw it, go ahead and draw it so you can remember it. All right, the first one, it wants us to complete with sometimes, always, or never. The slope of a vertical line is blank 0. Vertical is which direction?
Up.
Good. Vertical is up and down. So if I have an up and down slope, is it sometimes, always, or never 0? Remember, draw that little face. If you drew your face,
Sometimes.
here's my positive slope, here's my negative slope. So if it's straight up and down, is it always, sometimes, or never? Sometimes. If it's going straight up and down, it could sometimes.
Yes. It's going straight up and down right in the middle.
It's never. Quincy is right. If it's going straight up and down, if it's vertical, the only answer it can be is undefined. So this is, it's never 0. It could never be 0. Why? Because anytime you have a vertical line on a graph, your slope is undefined. All right, now let's look at the next one. The slope of a horizontal line is blank 0.
Always 0.
Horizontal goes left and right.
It's always 0.
It's always going to be 0. Looking at the next one, the slope of a line that rises to the right. So here's rising to the right is blank positive.
Always.
Good, it's always.
Good, David.
Good, David. The slope of a line that falls to the right is blank negative.
Always.
Good, always.
Good, class.
Always negative. All right, you guys will see this on the test. It says find the slope of the line through 2 points named. So you have to use your slope formula. Does anybody remember it?
Why?
Oh, why?
Hold on, that's your slope-intercept form.
You gotta do y1 minus
Other way.
Y2 minus 1.
M equals, go ahead, Quincy.
Oh, M equals Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1.
Perfect. That is your slope formula. You have to use your slope formula when you're giving coordinates. So I'm going to zoom in so I could see it a little closer. So plugging stuff in, I'm going to have my y's right here. And I have my x's. Now I just have to plug it in and solve it. Good. So my y's, I'm going to have 5 minus 4 over negative 4 minus 3. So looking at this, what's 5 minus 4? 1 over, what's 4 minus, it should be minus negative 3. Minus, let me erase this. Good, it would be plus. I'm going to change this to a plus symbol because I have those two negatives. So what's negative 4 plus 3? Good, negative 1. So my slope is going to be written as negative 1 over 1, which is also negative 1. What does that mean when I'm writing my slope? That means I'm going down 1 to the right 1. All right, looking at the next one, I have my y values, and then I have my x values. So looking at it, my y is negative 2 minus negative 3. Yeah, it's going to change to a plus sign over negative 1 minus 6. So looking at it, this is going to change to a plus sign, yes. What's negative 2 plus 3?
1.
Okay, I'm going to have 1. What's negative 1 minus 6? Negative 7. So my slope is going to be negative 1 over 7. So I'm going down 1 to the right 7. All right, going to the next one. All right, I'm going to have negative 4 minus negative 4 over negative 3 minus 8. Yes, I'm going to change this to a plus. And what's negative 4 plus 4? 0 over what's negative 3 minus 8?
Negative 11.
Good. So you have to know the difference if it's 0 or undefined. Okay, for this one, my answer is going to be 0. When you have a 0 in your numerator, your slope is going to be 0. Okay, so now we're going to figure out when it's undefined. So we're going to go over if it's a 0 in the denominator. So looking at it, I'm going to highlight. I have my y's and my x's. So I'm going to have 9 minus negative 2 over negative 6 minus negative 6. So now I'm going to add these. I'm adding both of them. They're both changing into a big old plus sign. What's 9 plus 2? Thank you. It's okay, Quincy. You're one off. You're good. All right, so I have 11 over 0. Now I have a 0 in my denominator. So this answer is going to be undefined. So now we should know the difference between it's a 0 slope or an undefined slope. If you want to think about it, if you don't know which one's which, if you go back to the previous slides, it said that for 0 slope, I'm just going to write it out. All right, looking at this slide, we should know what these symbols mean. What is this symbol right here?
Parallel.
And what about this one?
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular. So we now know certain information. If I have a parallel slope, what do they have to be? What do my slopes have to be? They have to be good. They have to have the same slope. If it's a perpendicular slope,
90.
yes, it's a 90-degree angle, but what does my slope have to be? What's the rule? It has to be opposite and reciprocal. Okay, that's the rule. So looking at this, if r is parallel to s and the slope for r is negative 1 over 2, what should my slope for s be?
Wait, rephrase?
Can you say that again?
Okay, if r is parallel to s, which is what they told me, and the slope for r is negative 1 over 2, what should the slope for s be?
Negative 1 over 2.
Good, negative 1 over 2. Okay, going to the next one. If r is perpendicular to t and r is negative 1 over 2, what should t be?
2 over 1.
Good, positive 2 over 1, or you could just put 2, that's fine. All right, looking at b. If t is 1 over 6, what should r be?
T1 over 6, R should be negative 6 over 1.
Good, negative 6 over 1. So if r is negative 6 over 1, what should s be?
Negative 6 over 1.
Good, negative 6 over 1. Or for these, you could just put negative 6 because it's the same thing. All right, so looking at c, since we're kind of getting it, what should r be?
1 over 5.
Good, because it's parallel. And if it's perpendicular to t, what should it be?
Negative 5.
Negative 5, or you could put negative 5 over 1 is fine. All right, looking at D, if S is negative 4, what should R be?
Negative 4.
Good, it should be the same thing. And then what should it be if it's perpendicular?
1 over 4.
Positive 1 over 4, good. All right, E, I know it just has the letter A, but think of it as a whole A. How do I change a whole number to a fraction?
Put a 1 under.
Good, put a 1 under it. So if this is A over 1 and it's perpendicular, what should R be?
Negative 1 over A.
Good, negative 1 over A. And if it's parallel, what should it be?
Negative 1 over A.
Negative 1 over A. That looks like a 9. I'll put an A. All right, in the bottom one, F, what should R be?
Negative 4 over 3B.
Good, 3B. And if it's parallel?
Same thing.
Same thing, negative 4 over 3B.
Oh, you got to calculate it out.
All right, example number 4, it says if R is parallel to S and R is a horizontal line, what is the slope of S? So think about it. I'm going to draw it out so you can understand what it's asking. R and S are parallel, but R is horizontal. Which direction is horizontal? Think of the horizon.
This way.
Left to right. So I'm going to draw it. So here is R. That means S is also this way. What is the slope of these lines?
0.
Good. Think of your little face.
Let's go.
My slope is 0. So slope is also known as M. All right, looking at the next one. If K is perpendicular to N and N has a slope of 0, what is the slope of K? Go ahead and try this one. Draw it out. So N has a slope of 0. Which direction?
Up and down.
0. Slope of 0. Think of the face. The zeros, where do they go?
Oh, like this?
Okay. And K is perpendicular. So
Between it?
you think of what a perpendicular line is.
Opposite, reciprocal, something like that.
So, I got it right? It looked like this.
-0.
Okay, so what kind of slope is that?
Undefined.
Good. There is no -0. 0 is 0. So looking at it, just drawing it out. It's okay, guys. Just let's look at it. I have a 0, so this is my N. This is my 0 slope, because remember we did a little face. Here are my zeros. Here's my undefined.
I still don't get it. But
Here's my positive. Here's my negative. K and N are perpendicular, so N is a straight horizontal line going left to right. So perpendicular means it's 90 degrees. So if this is K, what should my slope for K be? Undefined. My slope is undefined. All right, now we're getting on to the more information. Looking at slope-intercept form, this is a lot here because you're going to be solving, you're going to be doing more math. Slope-intercept form has to specifically be written y equals mx plus b. So if you don't know this, by Tuesday for the test, you're going to have a difficult time. We stated our slope is m. We wrote it so many times. M is our slope. B is my y-intercept. I know some of you guys are like, what the heck is your y-intercept? Let me explain it. When you are graphing something, you have an x and a y-axis. When you're putting something at your y-intercept, you are going to put the point on your y-axis. So I'm going to label it. Your y-intercept, B. Where am I putting my B? This is the point on your y-axis. So whatever number your B is, let's just say y equals 1/2 x plus 5. I'm going to put a dot on number 5. That's all your B is used for.
Isn't it where your line crosses it?
It's where your line intersects your y-axis, yes.
Easy money.
So find slope and y-intercept, then graph. We're going to go ahead and do A. Is A written in y-intercept form?
No.
So now we have to do it ourselves. We need to solve for y. So we need to use our algebra skills. So for this one, we have to solve for y. So I'm going to rewrite it. 2x minus 3y equals 6. I'm leaving my y there. I'm not moving my y. So what should I get rid of first? My 2x. I'm going to subtract 2x to both sides. I'm going to have negative 3y. Okay, you see how he said 6 first? You're not wrong, Quincy, you're right. But if you look at your slope-intercept form, your x comes first. Your number with your x. So I'm going to write it as negative 2x minus 6. I'm sorry, it should be plus 6. Yes, thank you guys. Okay?
What's wrong, Coach?
So look up at the board, Quincy. You see how my x comes first? I want this to match as close as possible. Got it? So I just put my x first. So now I have to get rid of my negative 3. What am I going to do?
Add.
I'm not going to add 3.
Divide.
I'm dividing by negative 3. So I need to divide everything by negative 3. We are solving for y, yes. So I'm going to get y equals, what's negative 2 divided by negative 3?
Wait.
What's a negative divided by a negative? Positive. I'm going to keep my fraction how it is. 2 over 3x. Now, what's positive 6 divided by negative 3? Good. Thank you, negative 2. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to identify my slope and my y-intercept. So what is my slope for A?
2 over 3.
Good, 2 over 3. And what is my y-intercept? Negative 2. All right, looking at B. What is my slope for B? Good, thank you, Robert. Negative 1 over 4. And what's my y-intercept? Positive 2. And looking at the last one, what's my slope for C?
Under 5. 0.
Good, it's going to be 0. And what's my y-intercept?
Negative 3.
Good, negative 3. So you guys could kind of like move your screen to where you could see the graph and your answers, but I'm only going to show my graph. So looking here, my recommendation, always do your y-intercept first. So we're going to do the first one. We're going to do A. What was my y-intercept for A?
Negative 2.
So that means I'm going to put a dot on negative 2. And then what's my slope?
Up 2. Wait.
Up 2
To the right 3.
to the right 3. So going up 2 to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to put a dot where you end. My recommendation is to do at least 3 dots so you get a more accurate graph.
Up 2.
So starting at that last point, I'm going to go up 2 to the right 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So it should be right here. I'm going to
If you
go.
run out of space, you just do the opposite going down.
If you're gonna go backwards, you have to do the opposite. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go down 2, 1, 2, to the left 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now I'm gonna graph it because this is a continuing line.
Wait, why we went to the left?
I'm just showing you the opposite. So you see how, Quincy, we only went to the right of the graph? I wanted to add one to the left of the graph, so I had to do the opposite. So graphing it on Notability, if you guys just hold down your pencil at the end, it'll make a straight line. Go quickly. All right, I did A. Now I'm going to go ahead and do B. What's my y-intercept for B?
2.
Good, so I'm going to put a dot on my 2 on my y-axis. And then what's my slope? Good, down 1. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's right here. I'm going to make another one, down 1, over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just want to make one to my left so I have a more accurate graph. I'm going to go up 1 because I'm doing the opposite. To the left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So graphing it as best as we can. It's going to look something like this, and this is my B line. All right, and the last one is C. What is my y-intercept for C?
-3.
Good, so I'm going to put a dot on -3. And what was my slope?
0.
So am I going to go up and down or side to side? Side to side, and that's it. And this is my C line. So if you see it, it's that blue line at the bottom. Do we understand how to graph this? You guys will have to graph on your homework, and you do have to take screenshots of it to attach to your homework, and you have to show work. All right, next. This one, you're going to have quite a few questions like this on your test, so please, please, please make sure you're paying attention to this one. It says, write an equation of the line passing through point -1, 1 that is parallel to the line with the equation y equals 2x minus 3. So for this one, you have to be able to figure out an equation. And we're going to do that one. So it says it's parallel. What do we know about parallel slopes? Good. Labeling information always. Parallel, same slope. So I know my answer is going to be something y equals 2x because it's the same. So my m in my equation is going to equal 2. So here's your equation. You're going to have y equals mx plus b. I figured out my m, which was 2. Now I have to figure out my b. You're going to take the points that they're giving you. And I'm plugging it in to the equation using my new slope. So my new slope is 2, so it's very similar to what they gave me. So I'm plugging it in. I'm going to have, well, writing my coordinates, making sure I know which one's x, which one's y. So here's my coordinates. I'm going to go ahead and label this one as x, which is x. This one is y. And now I'm going to take my slope of my new equation and I'm going to be solving for b. So plugging in my x and y, it's going to look like y, I'm plugging it into y first. It's going to look like 1 equals 2 times x, which is -1, plus b, because now I'm solving for b. So we should know how to solve this. 2 times -1, excuse me, that's going to give me a -2. Then bringing everything else down. And if I have a -2, what do I have to do to get rid of it? I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides of my equal sign. These are going to cancel out. And I'm going to get my 3 for b. So all I'm doing is writing it in to my b place, and this is my answer. So always remember, when you're plugging in, when you're trying to solve for b, you're taking the slope of your new equation. So it says write an equation of the line J that passes through the point 2, 3 and is perpendicular to the line K with the equation. So they're giving me the equation for the line. I need to change that equation to y-intercept form. So I'm going to write my y-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So I need to solve for y. What should I do first? I'm not going to add 2x. Good. I'm going to subtract 2x. Guys, don't pack up yet. We're not done. I'm going to get y equals -2x plus 2. They're telling me perpendicular. Good. My perpendicular has to be opposite reciprocal. So I know part of my answer. I can take this right here, and what would my new m be? My new m would be 1/2. Now I'm going to take those points, plug it in, and solve for my y-intercept. So I have part of my answer, y equals 1/2x. Taking these points, plugging them in. I have my x, I have my y. So I'm going to have 3 equals, I'm going to take that 1/2 times 2 plus b. So what's 1/2 times 2? I'm going to get 1. And then what should I do with that 1? I'm going to subtract it to both sides. 2 is going to equal B. And I have my answer. So this question is asking, find the distance from point 1, 0 to line y equals negative x plus 3. So normally you guys are used to finding the distance of a point to a line using a graph. So now we're going to use the slope-intercept form. So first thing you need to do are step 1. Find slope of the line perpendicular to the given line. So the given line is right here. So looking at this, my slope is -1. So the opposite of 1 over 1 is going to be 1 over 1. The opposite of negative 1 over 1 is going to be positive 1 over 1. And the reciprocal is still just going to be 1. So looking at this, my slope of my perpendicular line is just going to be m equals 1. All right, so I found the slope. Now I'm going to find my b. And our b is going to be our y-intercept. So how am I finding that? I'm going to use the points that were given, the 1, 0. So I'm plugging them in. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight it. We'll do it in blue and orange. I'm plugging it in. I have my x. I have my y. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Plugging it in, I'm going to have 0 equals my slope, which is 1 times 1 plus b. So now looking at this, if we solved it correctly, 1 times 1 is 1. Move it to the other side. It's going to give me subtract 1 to both sides. -1 is going to equal b. So my equation for the perpendicular line. Okay, we have to find the perpendicular line. My equation for the perpendicular line is going to be y equals, we figured out our slope is 1, so I'm just going to put x, -1. Okay, that's the first step. You need to find the perpendicular line. So just to review kind of what this question is saying. Find the distance from point 0, 1 to line y equals -x plus 3. So my slope is starting at 3. So let's just guesstimate. Here's my graph. I'm starting at 3 and it's going negative. So let's just say it's going, if I graphed it correctly like that. You're finding the distance from point 1, 0, which is right here, to that line. So I need to find that perpendicular line. I need to find that 90-degree angle. Because remember, we stated last lesson, if we're finding the distance of a line, you have to take the shortest distance, which is going to be your perpendicular angle. So we figured out the perpendicular equation. Okay, the equation of the line. So they gave us this line right here. I'm going to do it in blue. This line right here was this equation. And we just figured out the equation for this line, which is right here. But they're specifically asking us for the distance from a point touching the line. So now we need to find where the lines intersect. Okay, again, we only found the lines. We found both the lines. We need to find the point where they intersect. We need to find this specific point right here. We didn't find that. So that's our step 2. So step 2, we need to find where the lines intersect. So this part is super important. For this part, you're going to be solving for the systems of equation. So solve systems of equations. So this is something you should have covered in Algebra 1, but we're going to go ahead and go over it. So I'm going to take my two equations. My two equations, I have the one that was given, which was y equals negative x plus 3. And now my new one is y equals x minus 1. We're going to substitute. So we should know how to do that. I'm going to do substitution. If they both equal y, then they both equal each other. So I'm setting it up as negative x plus 3 is equal to x minus 1. So again, I'm just figuring out that specific point. They already gave us one of the points. I need to figure out the other point. So now I'm solving for my points. I'm going to solve for x, and then I'm plugging it in, and then I'm going to solve for y. So looking at this, I need to get my x's to one side. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract x. These are going to cancel out. I'm going to have negative 2x plus 3 equals negative 1. If you were to move over the negative x to the other side, you would still have 2x. You could still do it either way. All right, again, I'm solving for x. I'm going to subtract 3 to both sides. I'm going to get negative 2x equals negative 4. Divide both sides by negative 2. And my x is going to equal positive. It's going to be a positive number, positive 2. So just showing you, yes, I moved my x over, I subtracted x. I'm just going to show you moving it the other way, you're still going to get the same answer. So negative x plus 3 equals x minus 1. So now I'm going to add x to both sides, just so if you don't like that negative, you don't have the negative. It's going to be 3 equals 2x, 2x minus 1. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I'm going to get 4 equals 2x, and then last, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So you're going to cancel out. X is still going to equal 2, so just showing you. All right, now what am I going to do with that x? I got x. So that is one of my coordinates. Okay, I'm going to write it right down here. X, oops, I shouldn't be writing x. This is going to be 2 for x. I need to figure out my y. What do you think I'm going to do with that? What I'm going to do with my x is I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to take this one because I don't have that negative in front. So I'm going to plug my x in because now I have to find what my y is. So I'm plugging it in right here. So I'm going to take that y equals 2 because I'm plugging it in. I'm taking that 2 and I'm plugging it in. Minus 1. And 2 minus 1, super easy, is just going to equal 1. So I know my coordinate is 2, 1. Since I found that coordinate, now I know where my lines intersect. So this is where the lines intersect. So let's just go over quickly what we found. So I kind of drew the image up here. I'm going to draw it a little bigger so we could see it. So they were giving us our coordinates, our line. The line kind of goes this way. We kind of figured by guesstimating using the y-intercept and the slope. And they told me I had 0.10. So 0.10 should be about here. I figured out the perpendicular line. So the perpendicular line was this right here. And that's the line that goes complete perpendicular to the line, the equation of the line that was given. So this is my 90-degree angle. What I figured out down here, this 2, -1, is where the lines intersect. So now that I have my starting point, which is up here, I highlighted it. This point right here is this point. Now I found where they intersect. Now I need to use my distance formula. This is a very long process. You have to make sure you're doing your work correctly. So now I'm going to take my 2 points. I'm going to move all my work over here just so I can write it a little smaller. I'm going to take my 2 points. My 2 points. I'm going to use the distance formula for the 2 points. So 1 point was what was given, which was 0. I'm sorry, not 0, 1. It was 1, 0. And the new point is 2, 1. So I'm going to use these points now and plug it into the distance formula. We will go over all of this on Monday. So my distance formula, I have my x's, and then I'm subtracting them and squaring them, plus my y's, I'm subtracting them and squaring them. So I'm going to have my x's first, 2 minus 1 squared, plus 1 minus 0 squared. 2 minus 1 is going to get me 1 squared, plus 1 squared. 1 squared plus 1 squared is 1, plus 1. And then I'm going to have the square root of 2, which is my answer. So when they're asking me the distance from a point to an equation, to a specific line, you have to do all of this work. It's a lot, but you have to practice it. Again, we will go over this. If you have any questions, please come see me before or after school. But we'll definitely go over this. Your test is on Tuesday, which is the 24th. So please, please, please study. It's covering 3, 4, and 3, 5. So please study.